I thought, nobody's coming but you.
Hi, Louise.
Hi, Sarah. Here we are.
Once again for The Adoption Paradox, Putting Adoption in Perspective by Jean Kelly Widner. We are on chapter 19, Outdated Advice and the Importance of Openness.
Love this chapter. I really
Mm-hmm.
like how it's written.
I know, look at all my
I know
yellow highlight throughout the book.
blood can make family, but family often transcends blood. Deshaun Stokes. That was kind of I had to think about that one.
Well, I think it's what the
Uh-huh.
adoption industry wants us
That's
to
exactly right.
believe, and I still hear that from
Oh,
people. Well, blood doesn't make family. You as a kept person
it kind of,
saying that.
yeah. I mean, she has big
I,
stuff.
and here it just starts off for the most of the last century, adopting parents were told to take the child home and raise it as if they were their own. There was no notion the process was traumatic for the baby. And this dominant opinion came from both medical and mental health professionals. Therefore, parents never questioned it.
Yeah, never questioned it. And that's how I saw it with my parents. They didn't question
Hmm.
it, would they?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah. Mine either.
I like just unfortunately, we could almost read this whole chapter. Unfortunately,
I
what
know.
was a vast unwillingness for the psychological community to listen and fully understand the needs of adopted individuals or their parents, which is
Yeah.
it's true because as we discussed last week in her book, they have a loss too because they're thinking this isn't what I pictured. And
Yep.
yeah, what's happened?
And then they did a study, how they fared in adoption, but it wasn't it's interesting because they divided the groups into low, medium, or high problem groupings. And you know what the high problem groupings were? The the was
I
the
love,
fact the people who questioned who wanted to know about their
yeah,
heritage,
people
right? Who were
about where they came from were the high
yeah,
problem people, which is still the truth. We're the high problem people now
y-
talking. So I mean,
yes. I mean, just simply wanting to know, and yet they still say genealogy people are so $3.5 billion industry genealogy. But
yeah,
if we adoptees had the nerve to question our past, well, you're trouble.
you're trouble. Look at adoption was intended to be the systematic erasure of a child's familial history. The original identity and surname subjected to the new family, overwritten 50 years ago. This was the say. Their lives were secondary to the adults around them. I mean, we're here this part every adoptee is a walking talking experiment in nature versus nurture. If their nature is denied, a paradoxical, just like her book, paradoxical existence is forced onto that young person. That's what really
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, which then as we know, the more you stuff down your true self, then you become this other. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so unhealthy. It that kind of falls in with people pleasing, right? You kind of
the
it's
false
the
self.
same thing, the false self, exactly.
You're right, people pleasing, all of it. It's the how significant the emotions it varies for every adoptee. Many will develop coping mechanisms. You and I have some of these,
Mm-hmm.
maybe all of them, to manage internal landscape. They can manifest as feelings of anxiety, hypervigilance, depression, attachment disorders. Others may experience symptoms outwardly that are struggling. Some struggle inward. I mean, this is the we do not know an adoptee that's come out of the fight that hasn't dealt with all of this.
Exactly. I
And
do I do like this line. The price tag for an adoptee feeling they belong to their new family should not include the denial of their inner nature or first family.
that's the best line ever. The price.
Yeah.
I put a
Yeah.
big circle around it too. That's a great. We're gonna make that an Instagram post next week
I
because
like it.
I do too. And
So, this whole chapter really is about the importance of openness. And in our era, we didn't have open adoption, so everything was closed down. There were outliers who talked to their
yes,
kids about their adoption and being open about it and all that stuff. But many were just like, this is a blank slate.
yeah,
You're in our family now. The other stuff doesn't matter. And that causes, look at how many health issues there are and substance issues and all that stuff.
Yeah. So
And the
much.
book really goes into now open adoptions and how that they are better in some ways.
It- just better, even if they know a little bit, the more you know. We were talking about this before we got on. Even if you find out something bad, even if people don't want you, even if there's struggle, it's people who know about their past fare well. They fare better than not knowing. And what she gets into different stories too about open arrangements and what worked, what doesn't. But when open is an attitude, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a whole. I feel like we could literally quote the whole chat. This is like I was screenshotting it and sending it to my brother actually, just because
And
he's.
also, and it really just goes into children have fared better when they know about their family. In these days when they can have an open adoption, they know their family. There's a certain level of security and helpful with their self-esteem and all that stuff. And the parents, adoptive parents, needing to put aside their own insecurities
Yeah,
to put the child's needs first.
and she said that she had a couple people in here. One of the moms did say that, like, it was hard on me when my child would see the parents or whatever, but it was better for her. And
Hmm.
really, it's child centered, is what it comes down to, right? Like, you're trying to help have a healthy child into this world that becomes a healthy adult. And, you know,
It still is a thing for me that why still couldn't those parents get the resources to raise their own children? Yes, there's this open adoption. Sure, there are some circumstances where the parents just aren't capable for whatever reason. But I mean, a lot of these, it's probably because they didn't have the resources.
I know.
So here you've got these other people raising your kid because they have money, more money, or whatever it
We had
is.
someone comment on our TikTok, which I happened to look at when we loaded something that said, I don't know why everyone's so negative. My daughter's so excited to adopt when she gets older. We talk about it all the time. Like, it's just not known. Like, people don't really realize what they're saying with that.
I know.
Like,
Oh,
it's such a strange thing. Like, now that I know it, it's hard to grasp how
I,
you don't know it. How,
I know. I know. I mean, it's still the predominant narrative that
yeah,
adoption is a win-win. I mean, we talked about it last week with the
yeah,
with the therapists who were like, "What do you feel
yeah,
about adoption? Win-win. Well, what if I had a child who loses? Terrible.
yeah.
Like
I know.
it's still this dominant narrative."
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to parents who are open. There's something that says, what did she say here? It can be, oh, like, what does this look like? It can, like, if sometimes you don't know anything, like maybe you don't know anything to
Yeah.
say, right? So, but what does it look like? It can be pictures on the wall. It can be comments when they're little. What is it? I wonder if this is what your birth dad looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Or if he likes this
About that.
food, or one parent did say she noticed that the first mother and the child had the same food taste and this and that. These are things that, I was with my family recently and they, like biscuits and gravy. That is so not my thing.
Never
And
has. Yeah.
it's and everyone in in my adoptive family loves that. That's their I don't like it. I don't like pork. They're all big pork eaters. Not my thing. This
No.
is nature.
I mean, a lot of this stuff is genetic. We know because we know family. We've met family, and a lot
Yeah.
of adoptees haven't. So that's that fear. Like, there's a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to meet family and go, oh my goodness, right? So you're still kind of living in that, like, the unknown is very scary.
Yeah.
And but I can tell you it does matter.
It matters. It really does.
Not
And
granted,
then
you can find out bad stuff, and we know people who have had horrific things, and they're still happier they know.
yeah,
It just,
exactly.
and I think help your child know, even if their parents have, that's what she said, the parent may be struggling. Maybe you go through adoption through foster care and they're having a struggling situation or whatever. That's okay. People struggle. If your first mother's struggling, that's okay. Still talk about her. She exists. Like this,
Exactly.
you know?
Not and it makes the ghost kingdom way more, you disappear into fantasy life. The less you know, the more you go inward,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
right.
And that isn't healthy for anybody. It causes so many problems. And
Oh,
so
absolutely.
it might be short-term comfortable for you to not talk about it, but the long-term repercussions are vast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then an adoptive mother and author closes out the chapter by Linda Sexton by saying, putting the child's well-being at the center of the triad relationships as the North Star helps guide everyone.
Good job, Linda Sexton. I feel like
Yeah.
we knew her from something. I
Is
don't-
familiar. Yeah.
Huh. Anyway,
Well,
thank you again
yeah,
for
great
my
book.
mind-blowing reading this morning.
All right. Well, I will see you in a minute for Christy, our friend Christy.
All right, Christy. See you in a minute. Hello, we're excited about this interview. We have our friend Christy here from outside the Salt Lake City area of Utah, and she's a Patreon Adoptee Cafe. She's been to our events and she's a friend of ours. Welcome, Christy.
Yeah, welcome. So happy to have you.
Thank you. I've been counting down the weeks I'm really
That is-
excited. I mean, your DC event was phenomenal.
I
So
can't
I'm just
wait.
glad
And-
you're bringing it
Yeah.
everywhere for everybody.
Yes.
We really got to know you there. You introduced Crystal Park in her
Yes,
documentary.
yes,
and
she's
you're
one of
good
my
friends with
soul
her.
sisters. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. We
Well,
have a lot in common. I
you
think you'll hear
do.
that through our stories.
I know. We can't wait to actually hear your story. So
Yeah.
tell us about
Yeah,
it.
because we don't actually know it, kind of piecemeal over
Yeah.
the months,
Piecemeal.
but yeah.
Yeah, I know. And that's kind of hard. It's hard to consolidate it. That's what I've been kind of going over the last couple months. It's like, where, what do you share? Because it's so much to like consolidate
Mm-hmm.
into like an hour's worth of time. But I was born in the summer of 1983 in Bountiful, Utah, the same city that I was adopted into. So at a local hospital, literally 15 minutes from my home, which is, I think, kind of uncommon. Sometimes people, moms
Yeah.
travel across state lines or place a baby in one state and they live in another. And my birth mother and first mother lived in Bountiful at the time when she placed me too. So my adoptive parents were unable to conceive. They never tried to prevent conception. They just were married. They've known each other since they were 5. We have a picture of them when they were small kids. They were next door neighbors. And so they've just been in each other's lives forever. Their parents got along well, and they just had a really stable relationship, got married, and were just like, if it happens, it happens. And 7 years later, they were still then actively trying to figure out
Right.
why it wasn't happening. And they never really put in paperwork or anything for adoption. They were just praying, which I don't follow one particular religion, but I do believe in the power of prayer, just, putting things out there. And so they had been praying and wanting to have a child. And my birth mother knew my adopted uncle. So he was an attorney, and she went to him. I was the third born for her. She had kept the other 2, which was really hard to find out when I was older. So, cause it was like, you just wondered, like, why did you keep them and not me? Like, what was wrong? And I think when you're younger growing up too, that ghost kingdom, you tend to like fantasize these just beautiful stories. I think cause they are soothing. Right.
Did your parents not tell you? I mean, did they know who she was? They must have,
my
because of your...
dad saw her one time. He went to my uncle's office one time when she was there because he wanted to see her, and so he held the door for her apparently. And my brother was with her, but I didn't hear this story until I was 17, so I had no idea that he'd even seen her. I didn't know he knew her name. I didn't know anything, and I thought I'd always known. I grew up thinking I had been told just from like a young age, maybe 2 or 3, just because I can't remember being told. But then later, as I became an adult, I've had 4 different people come up to me and apologize for telling me that I was adopted. They're like, I think I told you, the way you reacted made me think you didn't know. And I'm like, I don't remember any of these 4 people telling me.
Interesting.
And so I went and asked my adopted mom, and she goes, no, it was one of the neighbor girls that had told you. And so when you were like 7, we sat you down, which was kind of jarring for me too, because I was like, wow, 7? Like, why did you wait for somebody else to be the one to tell me?
And what did the neighbor kid know?
Yeah,
And
because my parents couldn't conceive for so long, like everybody knew they couldn't have
Everybody knows
kids. And so
small
when I
town.
showed up, it was like, oh, the Becks have a daughter now, it's like everybody knew.
Aren't you from a big family?
I have 3 younger brothers, but they're all biological to my parents. So I'm the oldest.
so they finally got pregnant.
Yeah, immediately
Oh,
after.
yeah.
Which
I
is
thought you
it's
had
interesting.
brothers. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like,
all
wait.
brothers. So I'm the only one that was placed for adoption out of 6 that my biological mom had, and I'm the only one adopted into my family of 4.
That's
So it's been kind of hard in the sense of like both sides of my families feel like you just have been given so much and you should be so grateful, right? Which you get from the entire world. But which I am. There's aspects of that for sure that I've arrived to. But I didn't always feel that way, right? And we don't always feel that way. There's a lot of things you have to carry kind of on your own.
yeah.
And that's made it kind of hard. But yeah, because my birth family, since they all grew up with my mom and she had quite a difficult time herself. They're like, well, you had money and you were so stable and like you had better. And I'm like, that money doesn't make problems go away. Money doesn't make everything perfect because, it usually is an upper class family or middle upper class that can afford to adopt. And
Okay, wait. So she had two before you,
so she had her
relinquished
first.
you, and then more after?
So it was kind of hard to find out. It's like, so she had my oldest brother when she was in high school. And she told me she remembers taking him to school and like people holding him in the hall while she'd go to different classes and just kind of like had a lot of people helping her out. And then she got pregnant. So, high school, that must have been what, 17, 16, 17, something. And then she had my older sister after that. And she had me at 20. So it was like boom, 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 like super young.
Different fathers, same
Yep.
fathers?
All six of us. All
different. All six have different.
All different dads. And that she's even married more than those 6 men. I think she's had like 9 marriages that I looked up.
Really?
I thought I saw like upwards of 11, but she claims 9.
That's uncommon.
Yeah. I think
that beats out, Elizabeth Taylor.
No, that's
wow,
that's
she was
so
young and cute. And I think unfortunately she wasn't given tools to learn how to take care of herself. And so marriage was a way of providing for herself and her kids. It's just like find a guy that can cover you. And usually it was rushed into, and she didn't know enough about the guy. And shortly later would find out this wasn't a good guy. And it would be, just kind of one after another. And it was really hard for her. And I have a lot of empathy for her experience. She needed a lot of love herself. And I think she tried to find that through getting pregnant and having kids.
Yep.
And my siblings have struggled a lot. Yeah, it's been hard for them too to witness what they have gone through. Because anytime a child's born from like a place of lack, I feel like there becomes a duty on the child to provide, when it's like the child should be born from a place of like abundance. Like there's so much love present that we now want to bring a child into this, which is usually the better scenario for a child to grow up in. But yeah, so my birth mother had 2 and then me, and she had me at 20. So we're exactly 20 years apart. And it was a really graphic conception. It wasn't obviously consensual. And so when she pressed charges against this individual, I guess in a court case, you have to reveal if like a baby's been conceived. And so her attorney got up one day and said, Your Honor, a baby's been conceived in this case. And she said he like leaned forward and smiled at her in a way that she's like, my whole body just crawled. Like it was just like, oh, like just did not feel good. And so she knew she had to get rid of me. She just had to put me somewhere, because she had every intention on keeping me. Like she's like, the minute I got pregnant with you, I didn't even see him or what had happened. It was like, well, this is my baby, because how much she wanted babies. She just was really easily able to put up a block, which I was really grateful for, because I did feel wanted by her. Like on a cellular level, I knew when I was looking for her that she would want to have me find her. And I think it's from that desire of her wanting to have kept me. But so anyway, she said she'd have nightmares about him coming to get me, because then she told the attorney, like, well, but he's harmed me. Like, there's no way we'd give him a child, right? A baby. And he said, well, he's harmed you, but he's never hurt the child. So he still has visitation rights. So she was like, she was like, that's absolutely crazy. So she placed me and told him I was a stillborn, and didn't tell him that I was actually born. And his sister would like show up at her house randomly and just barge in, like looking for a bassinet, Finky, like looking for any kind of evidence of like, had she lied? And she would be like, she's not here. I told you she's not here. And then they eventually kind of just died away and left her alone. So
she was right.
Yeah. He definitely wanted access to me. So that's, it was heavy to find out when I found out
all this. Yeah.
Well, because like my whole life, I was born on the 24th of July, which in Utah is a holiday.
Yeah.
It's Pioneer Day. It's the day that the Mormon church settled here. And so it's really akin to the 4th of July. There's fireworks, parades, barbecues, rodeos, like there's just something going on. And so when I was young, my parents told me that the state celebrated me being born, and I didn't figure that out. That wasn't true until I was like 10. And so I was like, this is my day. Like,
it's
I was born. Yeah. And then I met another woman who was a friend of mine's mom, and she also had the same birthday. And I told her, and she said, "Oh, how fun! My parents told me that too." And I was like, "Wait, what? Like they told you the same thing?" Which, yeah, I just guess it's just a fun, story to tell people born on that
So
day.
how old were you when your parents actually got pregnant?
Oh my gosh, so that's another crazy thing is both my birth mom and my adopted mom conceived at the same time. So I have both a biological brother and adopted brother born the August after I was born. So 13 months younger than me.
Oh, right
Gosh.
away.
Yeah.
Right away.
Like immediately after.
How
Which-
was it in your house? Like, I'm curious about that. You're very close, I know, to your
Yeah,
family, but-
I'm very close, but it's been difficult. I always feel very close, but also like adjacent to them. Like I'm
Mhm.
kind of on the side, which is hard. And I never could understand, is that adoption? Is that patriarchy? Like, because I grew up, being raised LDS and my brothers are all
Right.
boys and just had different things that they could do. And I was treated different, and I just never knew like why was the thing? What was the thing that was underlying why I felt so different? And then when I started coming out of the fog, I was like, oh, a lot of this makes sense. And then deconstructing religion on top of that was the whole thing. But
Was your first mother also LDS?
loosely, I mean, I feel like socially, like they went for appearances, I feel like. I mean, they all still kind of go, but they've really struggled. Their families had a lot of struggles. And so a lot of things that they have struggled with are very ostracizing. Like people are not very accepting of families like that here. Even still, as much as people try to modernize that religion, it's really,
That's how
really
it
deeply
is.
ingrained, especially when you live around so many, it becomes where you fit in or you don't.
Yeah.
And
So-
you have since left?
Yeah, I've left twice. I left when I was younger, when I was like 17, 18, the minute I had like my own say so. And I wasn't, because it was always like, if you live in our house, this is what we do.
Right.
And so as soon as I got out, I was like gone. I didn't want anything to do with it. And then I got pregnant myself and was alienated through that process. It was really hard through my community, and my family struggled with it. They loved me and talked to me, but like I wasn't invited to things because I was showing and I wasn't married. And so like I could feel the shame through that they were experiencing. So I then jumped back in head first for like safety of really just like needing to be
Loved.
back in everything. And so I was in that for another 15 to 17 years. And then I hit a depression so low where it was like, I literally can't do this. And I knew it wasn't for me the whole time. It was just going through the motions for safety, really.
Yeah.
But never really getting it or believing it, and seeing a lot of hypocrisy in my own experience through a lot of things. And I know a lot of people find joy in it, and I'm happy for them if they do, but I haven't experienced that.
Yeah. It's lonely. I have a friend who went through very similar and in and out, and she needed her family during having children.
Yeah.
And it's very painful to leave,
And-
and it is.
And your child?
So I kept him. Like they wanted me to place, and I was like, hell no. Like
Right.
this is my baby. Like, and I remember my family sent me to LDS Family Services because they have like a group for pregnant moms that are either placing or keeping. And I've listened to hundreds. Like I've listened to every single episode of yours, not to mention other podcasts. And so hearing all the stories, I really I can see the like little glimmers of like where things went right for me. And I'm so grateful for those moments. Like I had a therapist there who really did do the right things that you're supposed to do. She really did. Like we sat down, I talked to her about being adopted and me, my parents wanting me to place maybe. And, because they were like, you benefited so greatly from being placed, maybe your child, you're not ready. Maybe this would be good for him. And I was just like, absolutely not. And so when I was talking to her, she was like, I don't know how you'll go through experiencing a blood connection and get rid of that. Like, I just don't see how you would be able to do that.
Good for
And she
her.
gave me a list of things if I wanted to keep, here's the items you need to get, and just kind of like really did advocate for me. And I'm
How
so
old were you?
grateful. I was 22 when I got pregnant, 23 when I had him.
So you have a 20-year-old.
He's 19 now. Yeah.
19.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's amazing too. Like he's just honestly, he just was the beginning of everything for me, really. And he pulled me out of so much, which again, I've spoken of, like, it's not a kid's duty to come with something. And I never put any burden on him to have to do those things for me. But because of my love for him, I was able to pull through some hard things and get out of it. Like I was drinking quite heavily. And the minute I had him, it was like, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. And just people that knew me when I was drinking, they're like, I can't believe you didn't go to rehab. I can't believe you were able just to be done. And it was like, well, yeah, like once I knew that this was not going to be a lifestyle that would benefit him, and it was like really hurting me as well. Like I could see that, then it was pretty clear what I needed to do. And it was just overnight done, which was really hard. I mean, I still have, I mean, it's hard, you know, like when I'm around it, like I still have struggles, but I've been sober for 18 years now. I haven't drank at all. And yeah.
So great.
Yeah. But yeah, so that was hard. Like knowing that they both got pregnant so quickly. I mean, sometimes when I'm like in my feels, I'm like, I had like 3 months or 4 months of just the world being all about me, you know, before they both kind of moved on. And I feel like my birth mom, she even told me that. She said she went home to her husband and said, get me pregnant now, because of having placed me. And I just feel like she just kind of, in some ways, psychologically, she didn't move on, but in other ways, like she very much did just.
That also is the cycle of poverty, right? Like you continue to, you know, have that baby for that connection and then more and more. And it just, it can, that it just, such a cycle that it's hard to get out of. And
so that's, but,
go from there, because I know you have some big stuff coming. That's, so keep going.
Like what part? I don't know where to go.
After you had your son, because we know.
Wait, growing up, you had these 3 brothers, and did you, and you find out at 7 you're adopted. At what point did you start? I mean, were you close to your parents? Was there?
Very close to my dad. Very, very, very close to my dad. My mom and I really struggled. I had ADHD as a child, still do. I mean, I can't say had, I still have it. But it was like the generation where they kind of didn't know what to do with you. And so like I was on Ritalin and different things. And my mom would put it in my marshmallow so I could take the second half at school. Like she'd just shove it and I'd have it in my lunchbox. And so nobody would know that I was taking medicine. And now that I've even become older and processed, like what does trauma look like and what are adoptee things, and also I've gotten myself off medication and had to use, some of my children have had to utilize that at times in their life. And I see the personality swings they go through when they're like coming off of that. And I just think back to like the times I come home from school and I would just kind of like crash out on her and really just be emotional and verbally abusive. And then it wasn't fair for me to like lash out that way. But I think so much of that had to do with my adoption, and so much had to do with the medication. Like I was just so like high strung and like keeping it in all day at school. And I'd come home and I would just like, And then with ADHD, it's just, there's so many micro corrections through the day of like, don't do that. Why'd you do that? Can you just, stop talking? It was just this constant like micro correction of like, and I think that's like the underlying feeling I had my entire life of just like, I know you want me and I know you love me, but like, I seem to be all wrong somehow. Like you're not seeing me, or just everything I'm doing seems to be wrong. And I just really religiously groomed too, of like, this is how we want you to look. And here's how we want you to behave. And so my mom kind of got the brunt of my frustrations because she was the person who was like sitting down, helping me with homework and providing me those corrections. And so I was really angry with her as a kid. Like, and I think now, obviously it was probably a lot of anger of my birth mom for having left me. And so it was directed at my adopted mom. So we really struggled, and hard for young me. I have a lot of empathy for me, but also now that I'm a mom, I see like, wow, that must have been really difficult to endure, when you just want to love somebody and they just are refusing you. So it's just hard all around. Like that's when people say like adoption is such a great, and it's like, yeah, it can be, but it's a very difficult process.
Did she equate at any point?
No,
or connect the dots that it might be to do with your adoption?
I don't know, because within Mormonism, when you're sealed in the temple, they believe it's like a eternal sealing. And so when they told me that like the first 6 months of my life, they just lived in terror of like my birth mom coming back to get me. Because I guess you have like a 6-month window. And my birth mom did tell me she felt all the time of like saying, I want her back. And so once those 6 months were up and they were able to take me to the temple and be sealed, I think they really did. It was the blank slate in that generation. And I really do think once that sealing happened, they were like, she is eternally ours. Like it's as if I had been born to them.
I think it's still a blank slate, by the way. I think people still think that. Otherwise they wouldn't be, infant adoption wouldn't be what it is if they didn't.
But when they have this, like they have this ritual that they do where they believe that you truly are theirs. Like, I don't think they saw me as different. And so, which is great for belonging in many ways, but not great for attunement because you're looking at
Exactly.
somebody and hoping that
Good
they're
way.
something that they're not, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, now that I look back, it's like, I've gained a lot of benefits from having them as my parents. Like there's so many qualities that they have that are just like the most beautiful, like character qualities that I'm really grateful I had, but also, and I've had to take those things and those lessons and make them my own outside of religion. And I'm grateful for that. Like I'm extremely honest, you know, I like have just really good ethics and morals and values. And I'm grateful for those being instilled, but the way that they were supposed to look to them was just so within a box that was like, I can't fit in this box. And so now, I mean, as you know, like similar to Crystal Park, like I have Indigenous ancestry and I've
That's where I was
connected.
leading.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
I've connected with that and I have my tribal card and I just really finished a 9-week course with my tribe for a leadership program.
Now,
Yeah.
back up and tell us how you got to that. So when did you find your mother and what did you find out and all that?
Okay. Yeah. So, well, I got to go back a little bit further to kind of go to that. So, when I was saying I was closest to my dad for sure. And then I think I went through a loss when, the church started calling my dad to do like pretty high demand callings, which would take a lot of his time. And they told me that when they were able, they prayed and prayed and prayed for a child and they told God they would do anything. Like they would do anything if they could have a baby. And then I kind of just like landed in their lap because my birth mom went to my uncle who was like, didn't tell her that he knew my parents, like much less that it was a sister, but just said, I know of a couple trying to conceive. And she was like, great. As long as she'll be safe, as long as and this is another thing that's crazy for me as a kid too, trying to process. She said, I just want to know that she'll be sealed to them. And that's it. She knew nothing else. She didn't like go through a book. She didn't background check. She just plopped me like, as long as,
here's my baby.
well, because it's like, if they were going to get sealed to me in temple, that must mean they're this kind of people to her. And so that kind of checked all the boxes, which yes, they did actually. So that's great. But there's so many people who do go through the motions to look a certain way and aren't actually that way. And so kind of risky, but luckily for, it did land and it worked out well. But so my dad got these callings and was gone quite a bit. And that, I think I started really struggling and probably more so at that point when he wasn't around. And my mom and I started struggling more. And then when I was 12, nearly 13, they got called to be mission presidents in Brazil, which I was really excited about. My brothers were crying. They're like, I don't want to go. And I was just like, let's get out of here. Like I was so over Utah. I was like, and my grandparents had lived there. My grandpa served, my paternal adopted grandfather served 5 missions there. Now my dad has served 5 missions there. So my dad lived there when he was a young child, when he was 10 to 11, because his dad was a mission president. And then he went back on his mission as like a 19 to 21-year-old. Then he went back with us when I was a teenager. And then he's gone back again to be the MTC president, which there's only 14 MTCs in the whole world that teach missionaries. And so like he sat, and then he's had other callings besides that have taken a lot of his time. But so I just, like I said, I was so attached to my dad and so enamored with my dad that I was like, I could have the same experience my dad had. Like, this is going to be awesome. And I heard them speaking Portuguese my whole life growing up. And I was like, I want to learn it. So we went down there and I came alive.
Yeah.
Like in a way that I had never before in my life. Like I just never felt like I clicked in my family. And we went down there and I was like, everything that everybody's trying to change about me is like exactly how other people are. Like they talk really fast. They're really animated, like all the ADHD qualities that they were constantly trying to like, kind of tone down was just like, they're so big and larger than life. And they're loving and like, they kiss you on the cheek the minute they meet you. And so I was like embraced and held all the time by so many people. And like, my soul was just like, I don't know, like, and that's why my house looks the way it does with the plants is like, just trying to keep that feeling with me. Because it changed me. Like it really was the most special time of my childhood. So the 3 years came up when we were done living there and leaving. This was like the first, like I didn't even realize I don't know how we didn't put it together with adoption, but I lost it. Like the biggest panic attack I've ever had in my entire life. Like I could not breathe. I was completely falling apart on the airplane because it's like a death. Like all these people, I'm like, I may never see all these people in this experience and everything I love so much ever again. And I've fortunately gone back twice in the last, 20 something years is all, but it was really, really hard to leave. And my brothers were looking at me on the plane when I was crying, just kind of like, what is wrong with her? Like, get it together. Like, we're just going home, like to the same home we'd grown up in. It was nothing, it was like
Back to Bountiful.
Everything's just fine. And I was like, I didn't want to go back. I would have been
No.
happy living there for the rest of my entire life. Like I was so happy. Like I'd go out dancing. I had so much freedom. I would ride the bus by myself around Rio. Like I was
Yeah.
totally comfortable. I blended in really well with Brazilian women. And I belonged. It clicked for me, you know?
Yeah.
And so we came back and I went through just really feeling depressed. It was probably the first time really that depression hit me. And I just remember like white eyeliner was super in and bleached tips, like frosted tips for boys. And I was sitting in church and I was just like, everybody looks the same.
Yeah.
Like every single person is trying to look the same. And I just couldn't get it. Like I was like, I don't understand. I don't fit in here. And I was fine. I was the new girl at school. I moved back my junior year. And so I didn't know enough people to kind of like blend in, but also we had all changed so much. So it wasn't like I wasn't in the same friend groups, but I knew people. And it was fine. Like I integrated fine. I went to beauty school my senior year and then graduated that the year after after that. But so in that time, I just, again, was just like my identity was really, because I knew who I was in Brazil. Everything clicked. Like it just,
Yeah.
I knew, and I never doubted myself. It was just perfect. So we came back to Utah and I was like, everything feels all wrong again. I just don't like it here. And I didn't fit in with anybody. I was friends with everybody, but close to no one.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was really hard. And so I remember going into my dad's room one night and just really crying. And I got really in my feels and I brought up my birth mom. I just said, I don't think anybody's ever really loved me. Even my mom didn't love me. And she left me and just kind of went deep into that. And he said, but she did love you. And I saw her. And this is one of the first, and I was like, wait, what? You saw her? And I was like, I had never heard the story in my life. So he said, yeah. And he told me her name and said that, you know, my uncle knew her and that my dad went to the office one day that when she was there and he held the door and watched her walk in with a little boy. And I was like, wait, a boy? Like, so I have a brother. I had never even considered that I'd had siblings. Like it never had even crossed my mind. I had fantasized about my birth mom and my birth dad countless times, but never had it even entered my mind that maybe I'd have siblings or anything. And so I just like gave me this energy in this life of like, oh my gosh, like these people are out there and I need to find them. And so I just put my head down and I hyper fixated on trying to find them.
Yeah.
And it only
Did
took-
he help you? Did he?
No, he gave me that information, which I appreciate.
But
But
he
he kind of was
wasn't-
like, I mean, they could have found out so quick. Looking back,
Right.
I'm like,
Of
they,
course.
Make a call.
Your uncle,
yeah. And I even called my uncle and he
a
wouldn't,
family member.
yeah, they weren't helpful because I think my uncle had been keeping tabs on her family over the years and really saw like the struggles that were going on. I think he was just like, this is really not going to help her. Like she's going to, which then
Help-
like
help
helped me
you?
through it. Yeah. I think they were really fearful of like what I may do, which it then was, I mean, it's something they should have been worried about because I spiraled like hard after I met them. But I would have appreciated like a space to have processed it, but instead I was really just processing it on my own
Right,
because they were so
exactly.
scared of like,
They were.
you know, getting into it.
I'm
So
sure
anyways,
your dad even telling you this was a big breach of everything.
it just,
between-
well, I mean, I still felt close to him because I felt like he didn't bring it up until it felt necessary and he
No,
thought I
not
could handle
that
it.
against like your mom and the religion and
Oh, no, I think they were
was
okay. My
okay?
dad would never tell me or do anything without my mom. Like
Oh,
she
okay.
wasn't in the room, but I'm sure she signed off on it. Like
Yeah.
he's very, very respectful of his relationship with her. So there's no way he would have told me anything that he hadn't first
Yeah.
discussed with her, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like put my head down and just hyper fixated and it took me a month and I found her. Like I just obsessively,
And was she nearby?
she had then moved about 3 hours away is all.
Okay.
Okay.
So she was in Idaho, but just like on the border of Utah and Idaho when I met her. And so it was interesting because I knew her name and then I knew that she may have at one point lived in Texas. And that's all I knew. So I literally started going through like white pages and calling anybody under that name in Texas. And I was calling all hours of the night because I'm a teenager and I'm not, you know, even perceptive to like people may be in bed or whatever. And I'm just like calling anybody saying, did you ever place a baby in 1983? And so many people were so kind and just like, no, hon, I didn't, but you know, good luck on your, and then some people were so mean. They'd be like, well, maybe she doesn't want you to find them. And I would just be like, click, like hang up the phone. Just like, what do you know? Who are you? Like, what are you talking about? Of course she wants me to find her. You're just crazy.
Yeah.
And so I finally
keep
was
your
like,
opinions to yourself, stranger.
yeah, so, but I'm also
But
calling
I
them at like 11 o'clock at night. I'm sure they were like,
Yeah.
girl, what are you doing? But finally I was like, but I know what hospital I was born in. And so just being naive, I thought, well, if I know my birth mom's name, like they're going to give me the information because it's like, I already know, like there's nothing to conceal here. Like I already know. And so I went down to the hospital and wanted to talk to the nurses. And I was like, I need to find out, information about my, like when I was delivered and whatever. And the lady just like, so sweet, just looked at me and just said, hon, I can't give you that. But if you know her name, marriage records are public. And I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't even considered
She gave
marriage
you a little-
records.
a little
Yeah, it's like a
piece.
little nugget where I was like, thank you. And I ran out and I called the Utah Department of Marriage Records or marriage, I don't know, whatever it's called, but I looked it up, found it, and called and said, I need to know of a woman named this. And she was married probably, and I'm just guessing between 82 and 83 because I was born in 83. And she goes, yeah, I see one right here. She's married to this gentleman, whatever. And I opened the white pages again and looked for a guy with that name. And the first person I called was her ex-husband. So anyways,
What did he say? How was that?
I called and I talked to his wife, his current wife, who he's still married to, and I've now met. She's really sweet. But she was guarded. I could feel that. And when I talked to her, I wasn't convinced she was even going to give him my phone number. Like I was really stressed that he hadn't answered the phone. I had to go through her to talk to him. And so she said, well, I'll reach out to him and see if he wants to talk. And he called me back and I immediately said, are you my dad? And he said, I'm not. And I said, well, then who is? What do you know? And he said, that's not my place to tell you. But let me reach out to your mom and see if she wants to talk to you, because I'm not going to just give you her number. And so he reached out to her and said, I have a little girl on the phone that's looking for you. And she was like, yes, please. And it's so interesting because it was July 3rd that I found them. And the next day was the 4th of July. So again, Damon asked me when I was interviewed with him, where he's like, well, some people put the number on the table and sit there for months and kind of hum and haw about it. Like, am I going to call? And I was like, I didn't even process it. The minute he hung up the phone and said, here's her phone number, I was already dialing it. Like I didn't even stop to think. So I called and she picked up the phone and she sounds just like me, like our cadence, the way we talk, everything. We just cried and cried and cried. And I was like, why did you place me? And she said, well, tomorrow is a holiday. Like, can you come up tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, like I'll be there, because I had my own car. I was just going to drive. And so I told my dad later, I'm going up there tomorrow. And he was like, well, you're not going alone. Like I'll drive you. I'll go with you. He wanted to make sure I was okay. So we drove up there together, and I remember the car just being kind of silent. Like I think he must have been processing a lot, and I was really anxious. And we got there, and it's funny to hear him talk about it now, because he's like, I remember sitting in that room and just looking at her and then looking at you and looking at her, and he was just like, I couldn't believe it, like how similar you guys were. But I got there, and when I pulled up, I went to get out of the car, and I had a younger sister, which I had never had a sister before. I only had brothers. And she just like jumped, like she ran out the front door and like jumped into my arms.
Oh, come on.
And was so excited to meet me. And they're younger than me, so they were still all living at home. The 2 older ones were no longer at home. And so, I didn't really get to know them very well, and I'm not close to them. But all the younger ones, I did feel like, because I met them when I was just shy of 18. I was 17, almost 18. I met them on the 4th of July. I turned 18 on the 24th. And so I was in their life until only recently did we fall out, which was 24 years. And so I do feel like I was raised with them in many ways. And they all knew about me. She said that they had my birthday on the calendar every year.
All
and they
the
talk
kids.
about me.
All
The
the
older
kids.
ones said they
I
don't
had the same
remember.
thing.
The older ones said that they don't remember. So I don't know if they were just in survival mode of their own and they just were like,
Right.
whatever you did, I don't know. Because they already went through a lot. Like my one brother said that he would come home from school, my mom would be getting married in the front room, like without even telling him that she was getting married. Like somebody would be there performing the marriage, and he'd just be like, all right, well, she's getting married again, like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I just don't know that it was something they would have remembered. But yeah, she was lovely and beautiful. And it's interesting because when I was at her house was covered in plants. Like probably hundreds of plants in her front room. And I just remember that gave me a sense of warmth, because it reminded me of Brazil too. And she just felt very maternal. And so we went out on the front porch away from my siblings, and I said, why did you place me? And she told me like a really graphic conception story, and it just shattered me, because I wasn't prepared to hear that, nor did I think that was something that had happened. And I had been so protected in the bubble that she placed me in. Being told that this holiday was for me and all these things. And it was like just the complete opposite, where I was just like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah, you're young processing this.
yeah, it just threw me. And so then on my 18th birthday, just 20 days later, I told her I never drank and I wanted to drink. And she bought me a bottle of champagne or wine or something. She bought me something. And then for like the next 5 years, all I did was drink. Like I don't know. I didn't know how to get through it all. And I would tell my parents I was going to her house every weekend. I'd go up there and just get completely drunk.
With her, you guys
Nope.
would drink?
Nope, she didn't drink. She just allowed it. But there were some instances that happened because of it that I don't know that would have happened otherwise. Like being really drunk, we were able to bond in ways I think sober we would have thought were goofy. Like I remember her holding me in a rocking chair like a baby and just holding me and crying. And I'm like, no, never would I, as like an 18-year-old, be like, hold me like a baby. But when you're in that state and you're drunk, it is like, this feels like we both just really wanted this to happen. So that was a nice part of it. It was kind of be loved by her. And I really looked up to her. She was still young. I mean, I was 17, so she was 37 and she was raising kids. And I thought she was lovely. And she definitely had her struggles, but I was very blinded by just being enamored with being reconnected with her. So I think there was a lot of things that maybe were not good for me, but I couldn't see it at that time. And then I remember I wanted to just merge both my families together so badly. I just wanted to be like, now I have everybody. I have all the pieces.
They all need to know each other and hang out.
Yeah. So I graduated from beauty school in 2002. So I graduated high school 2001, 2002 is when I graduated beauty school. And I invited her to come. And it was so awkward. So awkward. Like my adopted mom left even. And I ran out to the parking lot to like grab her and be like, are you okay? And I just knew at that moment, like, this isn't going to be something that we can just like merge together, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that just, I kind of had to like fracture and keep those two worlds separate. I think they had harsh feelings towards her too, because it was like all the things they feared of me meeting her were happening, like me drinking, me running away up to her house all the time. It was just like, we kind of figured this may happen and it's happening. And maybe she's not the best influence for you, but I don't know that it was so much her. It was just things that naturally I was already curious about anyways. I think I would have, been a young kid, I think I would have found a way to still have experienced those. And so I don't put any blame on her for those. She, you know, provided a place to do it and I was safe. But then I started kind of following her relationship patterns at that point. I just really didn't feel good enough. And I was dating men that were pretty toxic. I just kind of put up with it because part of it being in the back of my mind thought, well, my dad was this way. Maybe I'm this way, or maybe there's something about me that like is, you know, I don't know, like this frequency. And I don't know. And maybe I think even like on a really deep, weird like subconscious level, curious to like what she experienced too, and was like allowing treatment I shouldn't have allowed. Just really young and really confused.
You were super young to come into all of this.
Yeah.
If you think about, I mean, reunion in general is pretty intense. And then.
So then you get pregnant and then you turn your life around.
Yeah.
And you stay in touch with her all this time. Had you ventured to ask who your father was, or were you just like, I'm going to, okay.
No, I wanted to know his name. And I even swore to her up and down, like, I will never reach out to him. I promise you, I know you're afraid, like, I will never reach out. And she told me so many fantastical stories that at times I was like, is there like truth in this? Or is she just making things up? Because I mean, at some point, like, she was like, he's involved in the mafia or the mob or like all these things. And he's like, gonna hurt you. And like his brothers are all like sexual predators of children. And I was just like, well, I have children. Like, I don't want this person in my life, you know? And so I didn't feel safe. And I joined 23andMe. And during 2020, I mean, I made a list in my phone, which I don't know if it's validating now, because there was just so many things one after another happening that were so hard. I thought I need to document this. So one day when I look back and I go, those years were so hard, I can go, well, yeah, but look at what had happened. There were just so many things. Like, it was just like, it would break anybody's psyche, the things that were happening to me at that point. But I had joined 23andMe just with the hopes of like finding out any information that she wouldn't give me at one point. And a woman for like 2 years kept messaging me being like, I don't know where to put you in my family tree. And I just wrote it off. I was like, I don't know, I'm adopted, like somewhere. I don't know. I have no idea how, because she was like a cousin once removed or second, I don't know, something that was like not close enough for me to be like, you may have any real answer that's of value to me. So every time she'd reach out, and Mormons are super into genealogy, so she really just wanted to place me, like she's so badly. And I was like, I don't know, lady, I don't know. And I just kind of kept blowing her off. And then one day she reached out to me. She said, I figured it out. You're either the daughter of one of these two nephews of mine.
Oh.
And I was like, looked, you know, grabbed their names quickly. Before I even responded to her, I paid for a background check, and it was horrendous. Like, it was child sex offenses. It was like really, really bad things. And I was like, these have got to be the guys. And it's because you're like, biologically related, you have these two names. So I reached out to my birth mom and said, is this his name? And I said it, and she just lost it. She was like, how do you know? And I was like, I promise you I won't reach out to him, but I do know. So then I turned around and reached out to this lady, and I was like, you know, thanks for telling me, whatever. And she goes, oh, they're so excited to meet you, whatever. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why did you reach out to him? And I'm like, he thought I was stillborn. He didn't even know I was alive. Like, this was up to me to decide what to do with. Like, I understand you figured it out, but why would you then tell them of my existence? You know, like, I just like, it was such a boundary violation.
Totally.
And so
and your mom was correct.
She hadn't lied. And I was always wondering if she was just making something up, you know, or like, I just did, because it seemed so fantastical. It was like, and I think hoping, like just hoping against hope that like, this isn't real, right? This can't be real. And like my birth dad's criminal history was like aggravated stalking. We had an asterisk by it, which means like somebody already has a charge against you or like has a protective order and you're just basically ignoring it. He would get married, and within 6 months there was some kind of like very violent charge, you know, that he would hit. So it's like he'd act like a good guy, you know, get him to marry him, and then like his true side would kind of come out. And then so there was nothing actually explicitly sexual in my birth dad's criminal history. A lot of violence towards women, which then just show, and the stalking is like an obvious violation of boundaries where he's not going to respect somebody's autonomy if they want to consent or not. So it wasn't a far stretch for me to believe my mom. But with his brother stuff, she obviously wasn't lying. Like they were involved, like they had criminal charges out of Vegas for like production, distribution, and something else of child porn and just not good things. And so I was like, I really freaked out. And so I deleted my profile picture on 23andMe, removed my last name, had just like very just very basic information on there so I could continue finding what I wanted, but they couldn't find me. And I just lived in fear really for a long time. And then I found out just several months ago that he passed away last November. So November of 2024, I believe. So 2 Novembers ago. And my birth mom must have known, like that ping. I just like, it's this, you have this like attachment, right? Like this cord between you that is unexplained. But she called me immediately when I had found out. And I said, I just found out he had passed away, you know? And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm jumping for joy. I'm so excited. And I was like, I get it. Like, I get why you would feel that way. Like, especially if like there was no justice ever brought to this person, like it makes sense why you would feel this way. But I said, I'm feeling really weird about it.
Yeah.
And she said, well, tell me. And I said, I'm feeling like I hadn't really wanted to meet him, but like I'd always wondered if maybe I could get like a burner phone and call him and just like hear his story. Like I never wanted to invite him in. I never wanted him to know who I was or know my family. I wanted to protect my kids too, but there was something deeper where I was like, I just needed to talk to him. And just knowing that that was gone, I was just kind of like, I felt robbed of that, you know, or just of knowing his side of things. And she just lost it. Like she couldn't understand that I was. So then she started replaying for me the detail by detail of what happened. Do you remember what he did to me? I said, you've told me this so many times and I don't need to hear it again. And if you need to keep talking about this with somebody, you need to find a therapist because to talk to me about it, I don't want to do it anymore. And I just said, you know, it's not fair for you to have told me I've kept my promise to you that I wouldn't talk to him. And I don't understand why you're angry. You're angry at me over somebody who's not alive and a promise I kept, you know? And she just said, well, I have nothing more to say to you. Wow. And we're not.
And that was, and so are you estranged now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just over me not being happy that he's dead.
Yeah, I knew that.
Did he have children, other children?
Yeah, so I was the oldest. He did have a stillborn before me, which is why he believed her when she said I was stillborn, because she did know that key piece of information. So I was his first living child. And then he has a boy, a girl, and a boy.
Different women. Me.
Yeah, well, the 2 youngest are the same mom.
Okay. And have you reached out to them, or is
I reached out to the sister, and that's part of why she was mad too. I made a Facebook page with no photo, a different name. I used my given name that my birth mom had given me for the name, which isn't the name I go by. I put a different birthday, the same birth year, but a different birthday, and she knew about me. That's the one thing I wanted to know. As I said, he knew about me obviously because his aunt of his had reached out.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know if she knew. I said, you know, I'm a half sibling of yours. Did your dad ever tell you? She said, yeah, he told me. And she said, he was really sad that you didn't want to contact him, but he understood. And she said, I don't know, because she's never looked into his background, but she said, I don't know who my dad was back when he knew your mom, but I know it wasn't good.
Okay.
She said, I know that. And she said, he put my mom and me and my siblings through hell. And she said, but by the time he died, he made up for it 100 times over. And I said, well, I'm both sorry that you went through a lot with him, and I'm also glad that you were able to make better memories before it was too late. And I didn't feel any need to like tell her all the things I knew, but her
Okay.
validating and saying like, I know he wasn't a good guy back then. He had a lot of demons. Was enough. But it also, it made me feel good just knowing that like he did want to know me
Yeah.
and talk to me, but it didn't feel safe. Everything
No,
she told
I
me.
could totally. What,
Yeah, and she said he understood that.
where
It's-
does the indigenous
yeah, that's
My
what I was
birth
piece
gonna
come
ask.
in?
Yeah, my birth mom's family.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Girl, yeah.
Because that was
So
the
he's
original
Irish.
question, right?
He's very Irish.
Okay.
Like his family, his last name is Murphy, and so it was very
Okay.
Irish. And his kids have red hair. And so when I do my 23, when I did my, all my ancestry, like I have some Asian, I have Portuguese even, which is so interesting because I ended up living in
Ah.
Brazil and speaking
Yeah.
Portuguese. I was like, that's so cool. My ancestors must be like, yeah, we're in the
You're
language.
home.
But, and then I have indigenous, and I also have Irish and French. And I have mostly Irish, but I just haven't connected to that ancestry. I think just because I've recorded
Haven't
it
known.
with him. But now that he's gone, I'm a little bit more interested in like Celtic things and just kind of learning about it. Like connecting with ancestry has been so healing, so deeply healing. And for me, especially deconstructing a religion, like connecting with my indigenous roots and being warmly accepted by my tribe has given me such a profound settling of my soul. We just, like I said, we just did those 9 weeks of this leadership program that they have for just, if you want to know more about the tribe, if you want to speak on behalf of us or anything, here's just kind of like our basic knowledge, so we're all on the same page, and you can
What is your tribe? What is
but
your
it's in
tribe?
Potawatomi Nation.
Potawatomi Nation.
Yeah, so in
Okay.
Potawatomi, and it's in Shawnee, Oklahoma. And so I was able to convince my birth mom 21 years after knowing her to do a DNA test with me, because I have to prove ancestry. I have to prove whose line I come from the tribal roles. And because she wasn't on my birth certificate, I couldn't do that. And so she held that over my head for a long time and wouldn't do it with me. And so finally 21 years later, I was like, this is so not fair. Like, I am so into, like, I knew more about family names than siblings do. I know so many more because, we're researchers as adoptees. Like, we want to know this. And I was like, this isn't fair for you to keep this from me. And so she finally did it. I was able to get my tribal ID. My daughters have theirs. My son's receiving his soon.
Okay.
Because I couldn't do my son's for him because he was already over 18. He had to do it on his own. So his will arrive soon. And it feels so good. Like, we had this meeting the other day, and one of them was about identity. We had different meetings every week. Like, the first week was about our sacred medicines, and it was like our tribal history, like about sovereignty. How did we like reclaim and have certain things that we provide, instead of the U.S. government providing for us, and where does our money go, and different things we've done as a tribe. And we had one about our eagle aviary. We're the 4th Native American tribe to have an eagle aviary, and the first to hatch and release eagles.
Wow.
Like, a lot of really things that were really cool to find out. But the one thing that stuck with me in all of it is she said, don't just say it's your ancestry, because it diminishes who you are. They said, you don't have to say it's my lineage or it's my history. Like, you are Potawatomi. You have a tribal card. It's dual citizenship, just much like if somebody was a French citizen and a U.S. citizen. Like, you have 100% the rights of what a citizen does of that. And she said, you guys are citizen Potawatomi Nation. Your tribe loves you. They stand behind you. And so when somebody says, oh, it's my ancestry, or I'm part Potawatomi, she's like, what part? Your ear? Your foot? Like, what part of you is? Because she's like, you are, and we claim you and we love you. So she's like, when people ask you, like, how much are you? Just say, I'm 100% Potawatomi, because
I love this.
My tribe claims me. And I was like sobbing.
That's gotta feel totally like embracing.
Yeah.
This is so great.
Yeah, it was good. And it's like how I've embraced spirituality, having left, because like, I think religion can provide a lot of structure for people who want it. I don't want structure. No. I want to feel through things and experience them myself. And plants have been that for me. It's like I started getting them because I was going to yoga teacher training, and I had done hair for 20 years, pivoted to yoga teacher training. And in that, like, the yoga studio I went to had a lot of plants, and it was just calming and peaceful. And I just wanted a couple for my meditation area.
Yeah.
So I started just with a couple, and it grew. And so then I wanted to be actually trained in it. And so I went to a local, a really high-end nursery near me. And I worked there for just under 3 years doing their custom potted designs. So like, people would bring in empty pots and like be like, I need this for my front porch, or I need this for a wedding, or I need this for a photo shoot in this room. And we would, dream something up and create it. And I felt like it was similar to kind of styling hair, but I was working with plants and making things pretty. And got some really good foundational knowledge from that. And then my kids still needed me. And so I pivoted and was working from home for myself where I could still be more present for them while still doing it. But when we do meditations, they say, like, go to your happy place, you know, like, where are you at? Are you at a beach? Are you in a forest? Whatever. And every time I was right back in Brazil. And so in that depression that I was in 2020, I just thought, like, where am I the most happy? And it was like Brazil. And then a thought just entered my mind where it was like, make your home Brazil. Like, why do you ever have to leave it? And so I just started growing it.
After following you, I like knowing the origin of it. Like,
Yeah.
what we got here.
I wanted to ask, before we wrap up, do you think you'll heal with your mother, with your birth mom?
I mean, I don't harbor any bad feelings toward her. I never have. I was never even upset that she was happy. Like, that's her feelings. That's her process.
Right.
Like, I don't judge her for any of that. I have a lot of compassion for her and the struggle she's gone through, but walls for me are sure it's like they've come up because it's like, well, now you've left me twice.
Right.
I don't know at what point you're just going to walk away again. And am I open to potentially losing you again and going through that? Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm always open to her, but I don't know. She's kind of manipulative. Like, instead of talking to me, she reaches out to my kids, and I'm like, that's not okay. Like, I don't like that. Like, I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me who's autistic, and she lives with my mom, and I'll try to reach out to her and I can't contact her. She won't let me. And I'm like, but you think you can reach out to my minor children, but I can't talk to my sister.
Right. That's just boundaries.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just think she has a lot of her own healing to do. And for a long time, I thought that maybe I would help facilitate that. I think I had like reversed how I felt, how everybody's like, we saved you, we adopted you. I was like, I'm going to save her now. Like, I think through a lot of the men I dated too, I kept feeling like I was going to be the thing to fix people, and maybe trying to reclaim that control and realizing, and that's part of how the healing happened too, is like, even through religion, people talk about like Jesus coming again and Jesus will save you. And I thought, nobody's coming but you. Like, maybe that is real, you know, and I do believe in that consciousness. And is that just a consciousness returning to people? Is that a physical person returning? I don't know, but I do know when things have been hard, nobody shows up. You know, I've experienced that time and time again, that it's really me that has to pull me through it. And so it's been powerful to figure it out and figure out tools that help me. And
that's a very healthy way to be. And thank you for coming on. And we're love hearing your story and love seeing you, and
like knowing the whole story. Yeah, we like knowing the whole story and piecing it together, because we only know parts of you. And it's like, oh, this is really.
Well, your episodes have really provided me like some grounding, where I just listen, and every time I'm like, me too. Like, I felt that too. And just to know you're not alone, it just makes you feel less weird. You know, everything that I felt was so different than my family. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm different than you, but I'm like all these other people, and we're fine.
Yeah, so exactly. Well, thank you so much, Christy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Christy.
So happy you were here.
So much.
Love
I'll
you
see you
both.
soon.
See you soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, I was so happy to finally hear her story, and you know,
I know, it's so big. Her
I'm
story.
sitting.
It's like,
I know there's so much. I mean,
the layers of it are
the
just
father and the uncle, and
it's a hard
that's a
thing
lot to
find
contend
out.
with. Yeah.
At 18, finding that out, being close to your birth mother, I'm sure the parents were kind of like, oh, wow. I mean, you'd be worried.
For sure.
You know? And it did spiral her, regardless of how it happened. And I'm sad that they're out of touch, but maybe it's smart to have that boundary.
And maybe just some distance, and like Christy said, her mom has her own healing to do, right?
I know,
so
big time.
I mean, that's a lot. Like, I think had her losing her child, the way in which she was conceived, and then a gazillion marriages, and you know, there's a lot. So I think Christy's wise to have her boundaries and you know, keep that going. But nonetheless, it's still messy and sad.
It is. And what she said, you save yourself ultimately.
Right.
It's really
so
the
true.
lesson. I mean, everybody waits.
That's
right,
every spiritual lesson on the planet is that's you are the one that can do it. Nobody else.
Nobody else.
Yeah.
Well, what do we say?
Another great episode.
Another great episode. See you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks so much for listening today.
If you want to reach us, you can find us at our website, adoptionthemakingofme.com. And you can also go to patreon.com to find us. And we're on all the socials. Thank you.